My understanding is they had a few issues because they were in a pit down in a hole that was, so they're just digging and pulling up bone after bone after bone, and they find about 60% of the bones of the animal, which is really high.
We kind of had a place in the house for that claw. It was like kept up away where we couldn't really ruin it or break it or anything. We knew it was special to him.
This is a very local story. This is belonging to the Helena region and to the airport history. And so that's the mission of what we do, tell the stories. And it's like, okay, where are those unique things that nobody else has it? And this is one of those stories.
Let's see, what else do we have here? I'm looking, oh, there's that one, that's about as good as you get. These are ammonites, so these are the relatives of squid. So they're extinct relatives of squid. They're producing, there's just lots and lots of shells. These are like any invertebrate, there's lots of individuals. They die, they collect on the bottom of the shallow sea and accumulate, eventually get fossilized.
The 1962 World's Fair brought people from all over the world. In 1961, people were frantically trying to build the Space Needle in time for the opening of the fair, and there was a lot done in a short amount of time, and SeaTac, SEA Airport, was part of that. They extended the runway in 1960 and 61 to make sure that they would be prepared for the big influx of visitors who would be coming to Seattle and the Northwest through the airport.
It was one of those kind of places that you had to have what we call mats to get a crane in because it's too mushy and it'll sink. We're about 500 feet from the road at the end of the runway, and we're putting out landing towers so that the plane can follow them in. And so here we are out in the swamp now. And we had dug down because the reason that we actually found the swamp was we thought it was bison. We didn't see the claws till later.
So in February of 1961, Gordon Simmons was working on a lighting tower out on one of the runways. And as he's deep down in this hole, about 15 feet deep, 14 feet deep, he uncovers some bones. And at first he thinks, well, maybe these are cow bones, a really large cow. But he then reaches out to the Burke Museum on the University of Washington campus. They send an archaeologist and a paleontologist out. And over the next week or so, they excavate this animal.
And I thought, gee, that must be an old cow or something. And I thought, oh no, that's too deep to be an old cow. So I threw it up here. So that's it, you got a dinosaur down there. Stop everything. So, yeah, the guys were real mad at me. We lost 3 days' work on account of me.
In particular, they find the hip bone, which is about 45 inches across. They find some claws. They find a head. Unfortunately, it's crushed. And they pretty much immediately determine that it is a sloth. And that's based on the fact that they find a pelvis that was something like, 45 inches wide. And no one else had a pelvis of that size. So as this big tower here on our left, where people initially found the fossil of the sloth. So as you can see with the big structure, they had to dig down. They were down about 14 feet deep in the hole when Gordon Simmons found that fossil in September of 1961. So animal probably weighed a little over a ton. They were about the size of a horse. They had this massive barrel chest, sort of short, compact legs. They were covered in fur. They had very long claws. The scientific name is Megalonyx, which means great claw.
We got a picture in the Times for holding up this 10,000-year-old bison. And when they got the claws, they found out it was no bison.
Really, I really had no clue what it would be like. I know I just had a view of a tower coming up in like a single pole, and yeah, I really had no clue as to what it was gonna look like. It makes sense if they were 14 feet deep, they had to be digging down for a big structure, and obviously this thing is massive.
I mean, it was special. This was a special thing that he liked. You know, he could have just ignored it and they would have poured the thing and nobody ever would have known. Because when they excavate after the sheet to get all the material out to build the form, you know, all that material's in the dump truck and it's gone, you know. You know, he had to see it and then make some noise about it.
It was just a part of his life to go out and discover things. When he would go and do jobs for the freeway, he would find old bottles. And so he was just into finding things and knowing their value. And I think he could tell right away that where he was a special place, and to just pause and take it in.
It must have been exciting to have found that fossil, I think, to be able to, you're deep down in this hole, you're like, oh, it's muck, it's muck, it's muck, and then all of a sudden to come across the bone that, initially if you think it's a cow, that makes sense, totally logical sense, but then to find out that you found this extinct animal, this really massive beast, that, I think it must have been so cool.
It was an opportunity for Seattle to showcase not only the region, but the ideas here, the innovation that was in the area, and all the things that we know make Seattle and the Northwest great.
Paleontology is an interesting field. A lot of the work is certainly done by professionals, but a lot of discoveries have done by amateurs, and I think that's part of it, is that you can find fossils anywhere, and finding it and then finding the right people to help you understand, that's what a story like this I think is really important for.
I thought someday they're going to want a name for that thing, and I want it to be named Gordy with a Y. Just a thought.